hand the floor to you, Sarah, so you can tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Great. So I'll just share my screen. I've got a little slide that tells you a bit more about me. So give me 1 second here. Can everybody see that screen? All right. Okay, great. So I'm really happy to be here. I'll just start with a little bit about myself. So as Leah said, I'm from California, but I live in London. I fell in love with hostels and traveled during my semester abroad. I studied abroad here in London. That's also when I fell in love with London. I love this city. I'm happy to be here. I've lived in a lot of places, like born in California, but lived in Boston, Oregon, the Netherlands, Utah for a bit, then settled in London. And for now I'm here. I can't promise I'll be here forever because I don't really like to stay in one place, but I'm loving it so far. And a little fun fact is I've been to every year of the Staywise Hostel Business Conference. And yes, there are business conferences for hostels and Staywise started theirs in 2016. And I feel really proud to have been there from the beginning. There's really no other industry like the hostel industry. People are so much fun. And then besides travel and hostels, I love dogs. That's my mom's dog, Chloe. She's a rescue. She's in the corner there. And when I'm away, I miss her so much. I really like bouldering, like rock climbing, and I'm a big comedy fan. So I'm so glad to be talking to you all today, and just going to tell you some more about especially European hostels, but some stuff about hostels in general. And I wanted to start by telling you about my first hostel experience. So I saw in the chat we have some people that have never been to a hostel before, which it's so cool to know that. I don't know, when I was planning this, I was talking to people and they were like, oh, but everyone will know. And I was like, no, I think like we're going to get some people that have never been. And I'm so happy you're here because hostels are amazing. They're basically what they are is just hotels, but with shared rooms. You're staying in a bed rather than a room. And you've got a very communal feel. I'll get more into it later, but my first hostel experience was when I was only like 6 or 7. So my mom used to take me to hostels. They were in America, so they were a lot more nature focused. If you've been to hostels around the world, that might be apparent. In America, there aren't that many like hostels in the sense that we think of now. If you're going to Europe, they're more, this was like a log cabin with bunk beds, and you had some activities, shared dinners, you had a kitchen to make your breakfast. And I was basically born and raised going to hostels, so I've loved it for a long time. And I really sort of fell in love with going to hostels on my own when I had my semester abroad. So that was in 2015. I traveled to 11 different countries. I did a lot of solo travel. I'm really passionate about solo travel. And I also did some travel with friends and family, stayed in hostels most of the time. And I had some experiences that just like, I'm so grateful for because of the people I met in the hostels. And I'll tell you more about HostelPass in a bit, but I started a company called HostelPass because of an experience I had while I was traveling on my semester abroad. I stayed in an Airbnb. It had good reviews. It was supposed to be, very close to the city center, very good. Like everything was supposed to be good. But then I got there and my host was really creepy. It ended up being a 40-minute walk from the city center. This was during my like traveling alone phase. So I felt just totally unsafe. And I started this site. I was like, should I call it like my travel horror story? But I don't think it's as bad as a lot of other people's. The bed I stayed in had bed bugs, which like ironically, I've never gotten bed bugs from a hostel. That's a stigma that I think should be, you don't get bed bugs from hostels. They're very clean. But ironically, I got it from this Airbnb. I got into the house and there were like pictures of naked women all on the walls, and I just felt very unsafe. So my door didn't have a lock. Luckily I had my own room, but I put my chair under the door like you see in the movies. I sent this picture to my mom and she was not happy, and I basically was just lying there on that bed that I wish I knew had bed bugs, thinking I've only had good experiences in hostels. It's been such a great way to see the sites. They've all been centrally located. I wish there was a better way. I wish there was a place where there was a collection of really great curated accommodations that I knew were safe. And that's when I created HostelPass. So to do this, I knew I needed to find really good hostels across Europe. So I've been working on this for the past 6 years. And I've been to hundreds of hostels around Europe. I got to know owners at a lot of hostels. I've been to more than just that conference I mentioned. There are more hostel conferences around there. And I traveled, like after I graduated college, I traveled around just to find more hostels. And I created HostelPass through the help of using resources like Nomadic Matt's blog. He's so good at, figuring out how his travel experiences can help others and making these resources. And when I was trying to find these hostels, the resources I used for his blog, I also used The Budget Traveler. You might be familiar with Cash. He's such a great guy. He wrote an entire book about luxury hostels of the world called The Grand Hostels. And I used his resources as well to help me find where should I be looking for these hostels. And also, of course, like Hostelworld, Booking.com, and Hostels Club. These are all online travel agencies where you can search for hostels. You can book them as well. I don't like to book hostels through these. I'll tell you why later. But they are good resources for finding the good hostels or finding just any hostels. And all of this came together so that I created HostelPass, which is a digital discount card. We've been through some iterations, but we've hit something that works. I've created this conglomeration of amazing hostels. They're curated and vetted. They're all close to the city center. They have free Wi-Fi. Every hostel we work with has to have free Wi-Fi. They have to have security lockers, and they're vetted good, right? So my mom would be happy if I stayed in these hostels. And all of these hostels on HostelPass offer a discount. And the minimum discount you would get from HostelPass would be at least 10%. But a lot of hostels as well offer things like late checkout or a welcome drink. So I'll talk more about HostelPass later, but just to give you some context of where everything I've worked on hostels has come out to, it's this thing. It's a digital discount card for Europe's best hostels. So through this experience, I wanted to tell you guys today what I've learned spending the past 6 years searching for the best European hostels. So I'll cover what makes hostels better than hotels, how hostels have changed, what's different about European hostels, what to expect from a hostel, the different types of hostels, which cities have the best hostels. Then we'll talk about my top 10 European hostels, and then secret hacks to save money at hostels. So I mentioned this briefly before, but hostels are essentially just a place where you buy a bed for the night rather than a room. You're sharing the room with other people. Everyone's usually very like-minded, and there's a serious community focus. So I've really enjoyed my experiences in hostels because of the people I've met. And that's what I think makes hostels better than hotels, because not only are the other people in your room or the common spaces or staying in the hostel great, the staff at hostels have always made it the best for me. I've really loved the people I've met who have worked at those hostels. And yeah, I've never stayed, like, the staff at hotels are nice, but their experiences, they're helping you have a more private experience, whereas staff at hostels are helping you have a social experience, something that you will then be included with the rest of the group. And yeah, it's just a great way to travel, especially if you're a solo traveler. And I was talking to Erica from the Nomadic Network about this. We were talking about how hostels have changed, and she put it so well. So this is a picture of Linda and Steve from the Beehive. They're a lovely couple who started their own hostel in 1999 after traveling around when they were younger. And what Erica said was that hostels used to be really cheap and communal for frugality's sake. But these people who used to travel through hostels have had ideas of how to make them better, and they've now built these hostels themselves. So what they're doing is they're building the hostels they wish they'd had, and they're a bit more expensive these days so that they can offer the amenities that didn't used to exist. So they still have the communal charm, and they're still a lot cheaper than alternatives a lot of the time, but they've just got better better stuff going on these days. They're more than just a bed. So in terms of how hostels have changed, here's the picture of when my mom and I stayed at that hostel in New Hampshire. The beds are very basic. You still get hostels like this sometimes with basic beds, but I went to this conference, and I'll just show you this video. This was the most recent StayWise conference. This is how beds have been upgraded since even I started working on this project of HostelPass. You've got, I mean, this bed, like I haven't seen very many of these actually in hostels, but it had a wireless charging station, a reading light, outlets and USB plugs, a room card holder, a safe, shelves, and an air purifier, not to mention like a mirror with a light and everything. So you basically have your own little room within this bed. My first hostel business conference that I went to, this same company was showcasing beds, and they were just the steel plate, basic bunk beds, which a lot of hostels still have. They get the job done, but it's amazing to see how just in the past 6 years, how much attention has been given to creating this better experience when you're still sharing a room and getting those budget benefits. So you might not see those types of beds so much anymore, or yet, shall I say, in these hostels, but you can usually, especially at hostels I've put on HostelPass, you can find these beds that have security lockers within the bed, which is really convenient. You don't have to like lug outside into the hall to store your stuff. It's right below you. And also you've a lot of the time got outlets and a little reading light built in, which is great. You don't have to pack a reading light anymore. And you also don't need to go across the room to charge your stuff and worry about if someone might take it, which that's also a myth. People don't steal from hostels as much as people talk about, but it is nice to have it close to you, especially if you have an alarm in the morning or something like that. And also something that's not pictured here is a lot of hostels now have curtains. So for a bit more privacy, a lot of the beds you can put the curtain over. So you feel like you're in your little pod. And on top of that, hostels these days, especially during COVID, have started turning their common spaces into more co-working spaces. So you still have your socializing common spaces, but say a hostel had an extra room or something, they might turn it into a place where you can actually get work done. So this really appeals to digital nomads and also people that, just need to get a few emails done on their trip. And that goes along with the hostels all having really good Wi-Fi these days, which as a traveler comes in so handy. And then as well, a lot of hostels now are incorporating restaurants or bars or even clubs like this picture below. So the top picture is from a Selina hostel. They have their hostels are very focused on co-working. And then the picture at the bottom here is from the Yellow, which is a party hostel. They've got their whole like dance club in the hostel as well. But it's really cool to see people creating these experiences beyond just a bed to stay in. So European hostels aren't really all that different from hostels in other places. I mean, the main thing, unfortunately, about them that's different is they're more expensive. So these pictures I was sharing before of these new hostels, that does come at a price. But it also means you are just getting, it's almost like a luxury experience, but you're still getting the benefit. So when I say more expensive, the most expensive dorm bed I've seen, which like arguably is very expensive, was 80 euros a night. And that was when it was like peak high season on a weekend night. So in general, prices range between 20 euros and 50 euros these days. But we'll talk more about that in a bit as well. And then what you can expect from a hostel, I say usually because all hostels on HostelPass have these things, but there are some hostels that don't have like organized events, for example. Certain hostels are just a bed with communal spaces and a community kitchen or something like that. So you'll have a shared room, you'll usually have organized events, communal spaces, luggage storage with security locker and free Wi-Fi. But then also there are a lot more things that sometimes happen at hostels, like free breakfast, that's really common, or a communal kitchen where you can cook, so that saves you money. Female only dorms. I can't even think off the top of my head of a hostel that doesn't have one, but I know that not all hostels do. You don't often get male only dorms, but it is nice to be able to stay in a female only dorm if you'd like. Bars, live music and events, co-working space, laundry facilities, which also is very handy when you're traveling for a long time. Bike rental, if you're in a place like Amsterdam, that's almost always the case. 24/7 reception, which is really useful, although you won't expect this as much at like a family run hostel. They need to know when you're coming because usually it's just them at the front desk. The coolest thing I've seen is pools and hot tubs are popping up at hostels a lot more, and that makes for a really fun experience. You're paying hostel prices, but you're getting, spa amenities. There are even some that have hot, saunas and things as well. And then cafes and restaurants, and of course, new friends. But on the topic of new friends, I think I said sometimes here instead of always. I've always left a hostel making a new friend, but that's because I've kind of learned that you have to make the first move a lot of the time. So when you're meeting people in hostels, I remember I was in Dublin and I went downstairs to the common space and everyone was on their phone. And I was like, well, this isn't exactly what I was expecting. I thought I'd go to the common space and someone would just be like, oh, hey, who are you? What's up? Let's hang out. But when I went, I realized that, okay, maybe I need to actually make that first move because people don't want to be on their phones in the common space. They want to make friends, but everyone's just a little shy. So it's honestly as easy as saying, hey, where are you from? That's the best first question at a hostel because everyone's coming from somewhere different and that'll immediately start the conversation. And then at that same hostel, I went to the communal breakfast and I met some really lovely French people there who ended up, we hung out the rest of the day and into the night, and it was just really fun. So sometimes those facilitated events are a really good place to meet people as well, instead of just expecting it to happen in the common area. So I was a little hesitant to do this section, but I think it's good because a lot of hostels don't like to be categorized as a certain thing, but I think for my purposes, it's nice to know that there are different types of hostels. So for example, a budget hostel in my mind is just, a basic hostel with a bed, communal kitchen. What you're paying for is a cheap place to stay, but it'll still have that community vibe. These days, a lot of designer hostels are popping up as well. These are like the Generator and Selina hostels. They are a lot of the time a bit more expensive, but they're very fancy. They've got, like a huge emphasis on interior design, which is pretty fun to see. That's kind of the flash packer. If you've heard that term, that's where they stay. I also want to mention these aren't mutually exclusive. All of these different things, they can happen at the same hostel. Budget and designer, I've got an example of one where it's both. Party and family friendly, I wouldn't so much put in the same place, but a party hostel self-explanatory. You're going there, you're going to do pub crawls. There might even be a bar, where they have their own events and stuff. Family friendly, this is an interesting one where I've seen recently popping up is a dorm style room, which you can rent as a private room, but instead of just bunk beds, you've got a double bed and bunk beds. So that means that your whole family can go together if you've got kids and a married couple or even friends that are happy to bunk that way. And other options are adventure hostels. This is like the hostel that I stayed at with my mom, but also you've got ski hostels, you've got hiking hostels, hostels for surfing, places that are near nature that have organized events. That's what I would call an adventure hostel. And I want to say these are my categories. Like you might not find these necessarily if you're looking on your own, but this is how I've compartmentalized them. Eco hostels are focused on sustainability and being eco-friendly. And then digital nomad hostels, I don't know if I love that word for it, but that's a hostel with a co-working space, really good Wi-Fi, somewhere you'd go where you have work to do, but you also want to travel. That's the perfect place. So I found my perfect hostels. I actually talked about that a bit. So that slide got lost up there. But when I'm about that, I found them through Nomadic Mat and through Cash and through the hostel booking sites, and then going about and doing my own research and visiting them myself. And I continue to use travel bloggers as a resource, the conferences as a resource, and and it's been just, yeah, really, there's so many people that love to travel that could give you recommendations. And that's a lot of how HostelPass was built, was on the recommendations of really trustworthy travelers. So the cities in Europe that I think have the best hostels, when I was traveling, Lisbon was definitely number one. Lisbon has a hostel on nearly every corner, and they're all very affordable. And what's peculiar about it is they're all really good. So there are a lot of cities with a lot of hostels, but Lisbon in Portugal has the most number of amazing hostels that I found of any city. Barcelona is a close second. They're also very affordable, and they're also plentiful. I've really enjoyed all of the Barcelona hostels I've visited. Amsterdam as well, they're a bit more expensive, but they are really, some are not so good, but some are really good. So Amsterdam has my personal favorite hostel, which I'll mention in a minute. And then London, I wanted to just honorable mention because I live here and I know some of the owners of these hostels that are just so friendly, and they've made some really good experiences for people to stay. So I would say Lisbon, Barcelona, Amsterdam, London as your top cities for hostels in Europe. So now we're getting on to my top 10 favorite hostels in Europe. And this is from my past 6 years of staying in and visiting hostels. My number one hostel is Ecomama in Amsterdam. So this is the hostel that made me fall in love with hostels. The staff were amazing. They hung out with us the whole time. Like, we went to do pub crawls. They came with us. We were just like, it felt like a big happy family. The design is beautiful. I actually stayed in this hostel during my semester abroad. And then that year when I went to the hostel business conference, I met the owner and I was fangirling. I was like, I stayed in your hostel and it was so amazing. And she was the nicest woman. It was really lovely. It feels like you're in someone's house. They say like, welcome to mama's. That's the vibe. It's the kitchen feels like an actual kitchen in a home, not a chef's kitchen, which a lot of hostels have just for convenience. And on the bottom right, that picture is of the female-only dorm, which I love that it's not bunk beds, because usually you don't have all too many people staying in a female-only dorm. So why not give them single beds? It's just a bit of a nicer experience. And this hostel has changed ownership, I think, very recently, but I was really happy to hear from the new owners that they're keeping it the same. So I'm happy for Annika, the owner I met at the conference, that she sold it, but I'm also glad that they're keeping it as is. So if you visit this hostel, you'll notice that it should look just like the pictures. So this I would classify as an eco-friendly hostel. They had the showers, you had 30 seconds, it was a button. You can press it as many times as you want, but just that, like, keeping in mind, I'm quite passionate about sustainability in the environment. So that was a really nice touch. And next is the Beehive. I mentioned them earlier, but this hostel, they do, it's a very family friendly hostel. I call it eco, and I didn't call it budget, but it is they've stayed very true to the traditional hostel that, my parents would have stayed in as when they were traveling. And they do these vegetarian dinners on, I can't remember how often, I think it's a few times a week. And they just have a really nice vibe there. You feel very much included and part of the community. And that picture at the bottom right of the bagels, so Linda and Steve are this amazing couple that they've just had this hostel for over 20 years. And they, during the pandemic, were really struggling. So what they did was, they're from the US and they started making bagels in Italy. And they've continued to do this, and they have like a thriving side hustle with their Beehive bagels. And I've never tried one because I haven't been out there since that happened, but I would love to try them because I really miss bagels. But yeah, I love this hostel. Next up, Selina Bad Gastein. So this hostel is in Austria, and it's an adventure ski hostel. It's also family friendly and designer, and they've got co-working space. So this hostel, I just think it's absolutely beautiful. They're like they're 5 minutes away from skiing, and also in time like the summer, you can go hiking around there. And they've got a pool. They have wellness events like yoga classes, and that is a perfect example on the top right of a family room. So you've got the bunk beds, and you can push those single beds together to make a double bed if you want. St. Jordi Rock Palace, that's in Barcelona. St. Jordi has 4 hostels in Europe. 3 of those are in Barcelona, and the other one is in Lisbon, and it is really recently opened. But I like this hostel because it's got a rock and roll theme. All the bedrooms are soundproofed, which I was glad to learn. But you've got a rooftop pool, you've got like club themed common spaces, and I just think these beds are really like clean and nice. I like that they fold up when you don't have someone above you. That's just clever. It's nice to have those little things that make you feel a little more luxurious than being in a shared like bunk bed all the time. And all of their hostels are themed. Their Sagrada Familia hostel is skate themed, and they get some like really famous skaters to come in. They've got a half pipe in the hostel. And the Gracia location is bike themed. So they've got like all these bikes around, and that one has a rooftop bar as well. Next up, Lisbon Destination. This hostel I love as well. The staff are so lovely. I would call it a party hostel, but also designer. They're built in an old train station, the Rossio train station in Lisbon. And they have this indoor garden. So it's a unique space to have been able to build accommodation around. You can see the rooms. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the rooms are around on the like outside there. And then down here they have, a pool table, and they've got beer pong sometimes, and this is a communal kitchen to be able to cook for yourself. And during COVID, they got rid of their bottom bunks and turned them into co-working desks, which I thought was a really clever move as well. It's been great to see the hostel industry innovate during that time. Now they're back to bunk beds because hopefully they're full of guests. So this hostel, so all the generator hostels, and Selina as well as a chain, but these hostels are all designer, like totally beautiful spaces. I chose this hostel out of all the generator ones because when I'm telling my family or like people in the generation above me that, yeah, I'm working with hostels, I always show them this. I say, this is a hostel, and they just do not believe me because it looks so beautiful and not like what things used to be. So this hostel has a bar. It has this amazing lounge area, which I just think is so picturesque. And it's got a cafe and these bunk beds as well, which are a little bit nicer than your average. And it's a hybrid hotel. So I forgot to mention a lot of hostels these days have private rooms too. So you've got hotel style rooms, but you've also got dorm rooms if you want. So if you're a couple and you really want privacy, or if you're, just a bit bougier, you can get your own private room. I like to stay in shared rooms because it's nice that's like a really great way to meet people. But yeah, this is one of those examples. The Venice hostels I've found are all of them actually are just one stop away from actual like Venice proper, because that's such a protected area. You can't really build the accommodation there. Like the tourism, there are lots of rules. So you're only one stop away. There are a few other hostels in Venice that I like a lot, but that's a common thing just in Venice that it might be worth mentioning. So YellowSquare, the yellow hostels, they've got 3 now. They just opened one in Florence. They have one in Milan, and this is their original location in Rome. They're a total party hostel, and they've got co-working space. They've got a bar and a club, and they've got tons of activities as well. So they've created this whole, it's called YellowSquare because they've created this entire, like, what's the word for this? It's like a whole community of things. You've got, they even had like a hair salon. Yeah, it's still here, and an escape room. It's like a full experience where you just stay there. But the point is to get you out of your room and doing all this fun stuff. And it's really centrally located near Termini Station in Rome. So I'm just a huge fan of what they're doing in terms of revolutionizing the way that you see a hostel. It's not just a bed, it's a full experience. You're buying into this like whole thing. Excuse me. So this is the example of a budget and designer hostel I mentioned before, Lolly's Homestay. It's in Dresden, Germany. They've just made every room in this hostel unique and beautiful in this funky, colorful way. Their prices are from like 12 euros a night, so totally affordable. It's always more expensive in the summer. So if you're looking now, it will be more than that, maybe maybe 20 to 30, but it's just, I love that they've managed to mix design and budget and also create this, like this picture at the bottom. That's such a perfect example of hostels. You've got the community and the cultural experiences, and that's just the vibe of this place. And then we're coming up on the second to last one, I think. So Astor York, I stayed in this hostel just a couple months ago. These are the more like basic beds I was talking about. That first conference I went to, that's what the beds looked like. So you can tell the upgrade from that video. The York hostel is really beautiful. Astor has a few locations in London and then this location in York. They're in an old Victorian building, only a 10-minute walk from York's like historic center. And it just feels like when I stayed there, the staff were so lovely, and it felt like I just love hostels where you feel like you're at someone's house when like they include you, and it just feels like you're all part of the same sort of community. This picture down here is from their Hyde Park location in London. So something else I love about this hostel is they have a charity breakfast. So you buy your breakfast, but then all of the money you buy, and it's, I think, very cheap anyway, goes to charity. So that's also the vibe of hostels. It's a lot of that is like very, world minded and that. And then finally, the last hostel on the list is Dream Hostel Prague. So I love this hostel. I think it's a beautiful space. The design is really lovely. I wanted to mention them as well because this is their only Prague location, but they've got all their other locations in Ukraine. So those are obviously struggling right now a lot. And I want to promote them as much as I can because they're a great hostel. And if we stay there a lot, then hopefully that'll help their business as a whole. But they're a lovely place. They're only, I think, it's 1 kilometer from the astronomical clock, which is that like the most famous spot in Prague. And they've got a great kitchen where you can cook and everything like that. So that's all my top 10 hostels in Europe. And I've got so many more. They're all on HostelPass, obviously, but I wish I could have done 20. I just don't have time. But now I'll get into the secret hacks to save money at hostels. So my first hack is to pack prepared. Hostels a lot of the time have you can rent a padlock from them. So these security lockers we're talking about, you need to lock them yourself. If you bring your own padlock, you'll save between £1 and £5, in London, so $1 and $5-ish per time. So if you bring your own lock, that's just free. You can lock your own safety thing under your bed or the security locker, and that's a great way to save just a little bit of cash, which is always helpful. I brought a little microfiber towel with me when I traveled. It's like super compact, dries really quickly. And you can often, if you stay in a private room, you get, well, pretty much every time you stay in a private room at a hostel, you get a towel for free. But if you're looking to save money, you'll be staying in a dorm room, and a lot of the time there'll be a towel deposit. I just like to avoid that. So I bring a little towel with me. It can be tiny, like it just, they dry so quickly and you just save that money. I also think bringing cash is a great way to, it sounds weird, but to save some money. A lot of the time when you visit a hostel, there is a city tax. So when you get there, you have to pay that city tax in cash at the front desk. And that's the same. They've got that in America and other places too, but it's usually just like a pound or so, $1 or so per night. It depends on the hostel. And then this isn't a money saving hack, but I just recommend when you go to a hostel, if you're sharing a room, to bring an eye mask and earplugs. It just like, people are lovely, but some people snore. And if you're sharing a room, you can't always avoid that. So I would just recommend that as a top tip. My next top tip for saving money is book direct. So I wanted to really demonstrate this. Booking direct not only helps the hostel because you're giving them your details so that you're connecting directly with them instead of through like booking.com or Hostelworld. The other thing is their prices are cheaper. So Hostelworld and booking.com and sites like that take a commission from each booking you make with a hostel. This is the biggest thing that I learned from this industry, is that hostels do not want to be paying these commissions to these these online travel agencies, especially after COVID, because they're already struggling so much. So it's so helpful if you care about hostels, if you want to save money for yourself, if you book direct, you get not only a cheaper rate, but also you're helping the hostel stay afloat because they're getting all of that money that you're booking through, and also they're getting your details, except they could put you on their newsletter if you choose that, and you can get some deals from them in the future, etc. It's nice to be able to have a connection before you stay somewhere with the people you're staying with. And when you book through booking.com or Hostelworld, a lot of the time that step's removed. So I wanted to emphasize this through some examples. I'm gonna make this better in a table, but I took an 8-bed superior dorm at YellowSquare, which was that party hostel we talked about before. I chose random dates, September 16th through 18th this year. When you're booking through Hostelworld, the rates for a flexible dorm, which flexible means you can cancel for free, and non-refundable is what it sounds like. The free cancellation option was €60, 48 per night. If you book that same room directly on the hostel's website, it's only €47.88. So what I mean about Hostelworld is you can find your hostels on there. They will hate me saying this. I hope no one from Hostelworld is watching. But if you find your hostels on there and you book direct, the hostel will get all that money. A lot of the time the hostels mark up their prices on Hostelworld because they know they have to pay that commission, and you'll be saving money yourself. The non-refundable rate, for example, here, $57.46 a night, direct on the website, $42.84. So if you're booking direct, you're saving €12.60 for that free cancellation option, or €14.62 on the non-refundable option. And that's a huge difference. Like that's a night at that Lolly's homestay we talked about. So that's a huge one. I wanted to stress this. So I did it with another hostel as well. This is one I didn't mention above, but I absolutely love, is the Circus Hostel in Berlin. I chose different dates, August 26th to 28th this year, and it's an 8-bed dorm. I used booking.com instead of Hostelworld. On booking.com, oh, and I've jumped ahead, but on booking.com, the price is $39 a night, and on the hostel's website is $32 a night. And I'm just going to skip here because I'll tell you now about HostelPass. What I've done in collecting all of these amazing hostels is I've also put together a way for you to save money. So these hostels, I'm partnered directly with all of these hostels. They've opted into being on our platform in order to get more customers in, but also they're getting a bit of a badge of honor. All of these hostels are great. So the benefit for travelers is more than just you're getting access to these great hostels, you're also staying at them for cheaper. So for example, when I was in that precarious situation in that Airbnb in Austria, I was there because I was running out of money and I needed a cheap place to stay. So I wanted to create an experience for people where they could book for a lot less, but still book directly. So the way it works is you buy a hostel card on the website. It's about £19 a year, €24 a year, $28 a year. You can browse all the hostels and experience, because we don't just work with hostels. We also have some tours and attractions and things like that. That's a new thing we added this year, and it's valid for an entire year. So if you're saving, for example, let's look at YellowSquare again. You've got the direct booking options, which we talked about before. You're saving even more if you book through with your hostel card. So the way you book is you get a coupon code. So you're booking direct still with the hostel. You just add your coupon code when in checkout when you're ready to book fully, and it takes off a little bit more from that total. So this example here, compared to booking with Hostelworld, if you were to book with HostelPass, you're saving €15.12. And then for the non-refundable option, you're saving €18.90 compared to Hostelworld if you're using HostelPass. So that's a really good money-saving hack for if you're traveling around Europe, and that's just on one night, right? So if you're traveling and you have this for a whole year, think of how much money you're saving based on instead of just how much it costs for the hostel card. Again, with this one, I showed you this before, but you're saving €7 a night if you're booking direct versus on booking.com. And then you're saving an additional €4 a night if you get a hostel card. So all in all, you're saving actually 11 euros versus booking.com if you use Hostel Card and HostelPass. Another thing about us is that we plant a tree for every hostel card we sell. So it's a digital discount card. You don't need a physical copy, but we planted 72 trees today, which I'm really proud of. And also we have, Ecomama was my favorite hostel. My mom's an environmental protection lawyer. It's like, I feel very proud to be able to offer a bit of a environmental incentive to what we're doing, because it's nice to be able to save people money, but then also to be able to help plant trees. And then I'm going to tell you an even more secret hack, which like my team probably wouldn't want me to talk about. But basically, if you want to get a hostel card to save money at hostels and you're not yet traveling, there's a little thing you can do where if you select that you're buying the hostel card as a gift, right here, if you're not, it says it's valid for a year from purchase. But if you select you're buying it as a gift, it's valid for a year from redemption. So you buy it as a gift, you can give it to someone else, or you can get it for yourself and then redeem it when you are actually traveling, and then it's valid for a year from then. So I'm going to go to the next slide because let's pretend I didn't talk about that. On this, just for you guys, I made a code. It's only valid for 24 hours. You've got your TNN 30 discount for HostelPass for a while, but if you came to this talk, I'm really grateful. It was really nice to chat to everybody. So I made another code for 50% off, and it's only valid today. So if there's someone in your life that you think would like a hostel card, this would be a good day to get it for them. So, and you can find us at hostelpass.co. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. We'll leave this up here for a few seconds so people can grab the website and the discount code. We appreciate this. Also, that hack is hilarious. Everyone go do it, but pretend she didn't tell you.
I know, it's a glitch I found, and I was like, I don't know how to fix that, but maybe it's helpful to people.
So you can basically send it to someone in the future, like you can choose a date to send it. Is that what it is, or a date to activate
No,
it?
you just send them. You basically get a voucher for a hostel card, and then you have a redemption code, and you can do that whenever you want.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
I
love that. Yes. And for those that can't see the screen, or maybe you're driving or whatnot, your camera's not on, in the chat, I dropped the website. It's hostelpass.co. And then the discount code is TNN50. As we go through the chat, if there's anything you like and see and want to save down in the chat, if you're on desktop, this works for desktop only, go to the bottom right-hand corner. There's 3 dots. Click it, it says save chat, and it will save it to a Zoom folder on your desktop. So let's jump into all of these wonderful questions. Thank you for being so detailed and what hostels are the best. You know, I feel like I haven't stayed in a hostel in Europe in a long time, so the landscape's really changed a lot. So it was exciting to see what different names were out there. So Rick, along with, let's start with this. We got a lot of questions in the chat. Rick, Kim, Jacobson, David are all, 60 plus older crowd, but they want to know, like, how do they sort out hostels for older folks? What tips and tricks would you recommend? Any advice?
Yeah, so it really wouldn't be that different. I think it depends what you're after, but I would probably veer a bit more towards those family-oriented hostels. They'll probably have less rambunctious, drunk young people up at night in the halls. So the designer hostels are often, I guess, yeah, because those labels I made up don't exist on most websites, it might be a little difficult to tell. But you can see if the price is a little bit higher, that's a good way to tell that it probably is a bit more family friendly. And also those people that would be keeping you up are probably going for the cheapest option possible. So, but that's also to say, like, I've stayed at plenty of hostels that were totally budget and really acceptable for, like, we're not rambunctious and crazy at night. There's just, you can read a bit on the hostel's website. This is another good thing about booking direct. You can read about the hostel from the owner's perspective rather than through these booking websites. So take a look at what they're saying and you'll be able to tell if it feels like the right fit for you. But no real different process there. I think it's all pretty similar.
Yep. That's really good advice. Thank you for that. I know at least labels, let's see, like if you're looking for, I know you said the labels don't exist, but if you're in hostel world and you want to find like a party hostel, they'll have labels like there's a bar here, so I kind of like look for that, like what you were just saying. What are you looking for? If you're looking for something more nature focused, look for a label that says that. So all right. So Erica wants to know what the name of the hostel conference, what's the name of the hostel conference that you went to?
So it's put on by the World Youth Student and Educational Travel Confederation. It's called the Stay Wise Conference, and I can put it in the chat if that's helpful, because it's spelled like that with WYSE.
Okay.
Stands for something, but I cannot remember what all those letters stand for together.
What all those letters stand for. Diane, really quickly, how long is the voucher good for? This discount.
This one's good for 24 hours, so till tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hop on it, everyone. You could probably unshare your screen now, Sarah. I know we like to look at everyone's faces. Yeah. And don't worry, everyone, you will get the presentation. If you're signed up for this talk, you will get the presentation afterwards, so you can have it always to reference back to. Let's see here. Do your HostelPass discounts apply to all room types, including private rooms? That was from Diane also.
So yes, the HostelPass discounts apply to private rooms. They apply to almost all room types. The only thing I've experienced is like all hostels have given us all room types. It's just a general, the code is unique, so you get it when you get a hostel card, but it's for all they make it for all of their room types. There's just one hostel, and it's actually the Yellow that I was talking about that I've seen has created a new room type that they're not even giving their staff discounts on. So those are dorm rooms, but there's still other dorm rooms that you can get it discounts with. So private rooms definitely, dorm rooms definitely. There just might be like 1 or 2 rooms in the hostel they've closed off that you might only be able to get direct. So
okay,
you can check that if you want.
Okay, that sounds good. Ron wants to know a little bit more about private rooms at hostels, the fact that you can get them and the fact that most people don't know this.
Yeah.
So would love your expert opinion and knowledge.
Yeah, so I've actually stayed in them before. One time I stayed in a private room because I was doing a business trip. So I just like knew I needed my sleep. That was the most important thing for me. And I actually got a single room. So it almost was like a dorm room in college. So they've got those depending what hostel you go to, but also there are double rooms if you're traveling with friends or with a partner. And you can even, COVID really boosted this up. You can rent a private room in a hostel that's a dorm room. So like a 6-bed bunk bed. So you've got like 3 bunk beds in a room and you're traveling with 5 other friends. You can rent that whole room for yourself now. That started during COVID and they've kept it on for a lot of rooms. So you still get that social experience, but you might be able to get a bit more sleep to yourself sometimes, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't want that? Be social and then go right to bed. That's what my life is about nowadays. All right. Awesome. Okay. So Sarah wants to know, what are the best places to go in November/December with weather and tourism levels for staying in hostels? More general question, but I bet you a lot of other people are thinking the same.
Right now, yeah, definitely. Well, we've actually been thinking about this a lot because we want to get more like ski hostels on HostelPass. I think November, December is maybe a little cold for skiing, like maybe a bit more in the spring, but yeah, also though, like Italy and Portugal and Spain, they might not be, the days are shorter and they might not be as warm, but it's still a really like, though I would compare those climates to like, yeah, California or Oregon, or I'm referencing places I've been and I know very well, but but then at the same time, like if you're after, those like Iceland or Copenhagen or like places with a very cool winter, that is like a bit of a once in a lifetime experience. If you're going to travel there in that season, that can be really fun too. And you're going to miss the tourists, which is always great. I want to think about that more and give a better answer, but off the top of my head, that's what I've got.
Okay.
And that's just in Europe. So there are probably plenty of great places not in Europe, but unfortunately I specify in Europe travel.
Okay. All right. I have 2 great questions here. David, I'll get to yours in a second. Erica wants to know, can you go to hostel run events if you're not staying in that hostel?
Ooh, I would say yes. A lot of the time, like the pub crawl I went to at Ecomama was paid for. So I had to pay for it even though I was staying there. So I don't see why they wouldn't welcome that, other people on that. And yeah, the only thing is, to get into a hostel, you usually need a key card or you need to buzz and talk to a member of staff. So you'll have a much easier time going to events, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. Like if you're charming, I'm sure you can join in on the fun.
Just turn on that social button. I bartended my way through hostels in Peru, and our bar, it was a very big party chain, hostel chain. And the bar was in the building, but it had a separate entrance. So anyone could come to the bar, which was nice, but they couldn't access the dorm area. So it's a good example of like, partying elsewhere. I also mentioned in the chat, this is my favorite hack. I did this a lot in Colombia. Party at the party hostels, but stay at the nice ones, like right across the street. It's the best hack in the world.
Yes, that's so true.
I feel like most places with a big bar nowadays, most hostels with a big social bar allow outside guests. They might kick you out at a certain time or whatever. They might not give you access to everything. But a lot of them are, they're about community, right? So.
And also like through COVID and stuff, I think a lot of these hostels have been finding other revenue streams. So like having a cafe or a restaurant, they want you to come in and support that even if you're not staying. So organized events might be a little bit trickier, but like the bar and the restaurant and the cafe for sure you can go to if you're not staying.
Yeah. Sell bagels at the bar.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, so David, I want to go back to private rooms because this sounds like a really great topic to talk about, especially if people, didn't know previously. Most hostels have private rooms. Has that been your experience, Sarah? And then what do you think you're paying for private? Would it be like double the price, triple the price? I think that's what David's asking.
Yeah, so almost all hostels have private rooms that I've on HostelPass, at least the ones that we've added, and we've got over 100 places. Like we've got over 70 hostels and over 100 discounts, including tours and experiences and stuff. I think almost all have private rooms. You're paying hotel prices for like a double room in a Generator or Selina, like those designer ones, but you're probably like, for example, a budget hostel, you'd probably be paying between 60 and 90 for a private room. So maybe it does work out to double, or in the way that you phrase that there. So that's clever. And then also if you're staying in a private dorm, so you've got 5 friends staying in a 6-bed, that's going to be the same price as a shared dorm, because you're just paying for the beds. They're just happy to fill the room. So the bigger the group you've got, the less you're probably paying for that private space with them.
I've noticed in those, if you book, like you can't book a dorm to yourself sometimes though, because they try to reserve those for others. Like say a hostel doesn't have a private room and you're like, well, I'm going to book this 4-bed to myself. They won't let you do that. They want to know the names of everyone who's checking in with you, because they'll try to reserve those rooms for groups. Like there's tiny specifications. Also,
sometimes you can't guarantee you'll be in the same room. If you book like through an online travel agent like hostel or booking.com and you say, I want 3 beds in a 6-bed dorm, and that hostel has multiple 6-bed dorms, sometimes like they've got 5-bed booked in 3 of them, so you're split up. So if you book direct, usually you're more guaranteed to stay together for that.
Actually, I was kicked out of a dorm in London because they're like, we have a group of 3 checking in and like you're in the room, so can we move you? I'm like, I guess. It was on St. Christopher's. Yeah, I didn't mind. I was by myself. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Mariposa just said, I booked a dorm room in Denmark and the private room was almost three times the price of the dorm.
Okay. Wait, booked a
Times the
dorm
price of the dorm.
private?
I guess she booked a dorm room in Denmark. Maybe she was looking at both and like comparing the prices.
Oh, right. Well, Denmark, I think as well, though, is usually it's a bit more expensive of a place. Like this is the thing, European cities vary vastly. Like Eastern Europe, you'll be paying way less. Western Europe, you'll be paying a lot more. Amsterdam, you'll be paying a lot more than like Lisbon, for example. So they do vary pretty intensely in price.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how much you know about the hostels in the US anymore, Sarah, but I've noticed if I try to book a private room at a hostel, it's honestly the same price as a normal. It's like the average price of a hotel room at like the Marriott or whatever in that same city. And I feel like it's because there's probably like a threshold that like they can't be that much cheaper than getting a private room at a hotel, like a room at a hotel.
Well, I kind of agree with that because my boyfriend and I went to Paris for his birthday and we stayed in a generator hostel in a private room, and it had a terrace and it had like it was a big space. It felt like a hotel room, but we got the benefits of being in this social atmosphere and like having these amenities of a hostel. So I actually don't think it's outrageous to pay hotel prices for a private room in a hostel because you're getting all these benefits and you're getting your quiet space to yourself. So
yeah. All right. I have one more question, unless anyone wants to drop any last minute ones here. Diane actually has like a technical question. If I buy a voucher to give, how long do people have to redeem the voucher? Oh, you answered this earlier, I think. Sorry.
They have forever until I figure out how to fix that. They've got forever.
They have forever.
Don't
hopefully you won't learn how to fix it before everyone in here gifts one to someone.
Yeah.
Oh, one last question, Jeff. Was that an AMC hut or lodge in your initial slides from a New Hampshire native?
It was. Good eye.
Wow, I don't know what that's about. That's so cool though. Jeff thinks that's awesome. Love it. All right. Sarah, thank you so much. This has been so incredible learning about your favorite hostels and why you love them from the hostel expert yourself, so
much fun.
HostelPass is fun. I've been poking around through it for almost since last November. So we're really grateful that you were able to be here today and, drop some education on us and tell us about some of your favorite things. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Sarah, again, thank you for being here and presenting. I'm just going to close out with a few